Kia ora, welcome to RPI members. This interview today with Sue Attrill is part of a series of introducing the board members to the members of RPI. My name is Kirsty Ferguson. I live in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I have been on the board. I think, in fact, we were just chatting before, I think just after you, so I think it's been 4 or 5 years perhaps. Anyway, the purpose of today's interview is that I will be, introducing and asking Sue Attrill some questions. So very lovely to see you this afternoon, Sue, or morning time for you, actually.
Yes.
We're on the cusp between New Zealand and Australia. So my first question for you is, where is home for you, Sue?
So I guess I consider I've got two homes. Absolutely two places that I'm really connected to. So I live in Mullaney, and this is the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, Jinnaburra country, Jinnaburra Nation country. And I've lived here for quite a long time. I've lived here for about, getting on for 30 years.
Mm.
And I've got a really beautiful little wooden house that is very protected and lovely, full of the yard's full of trees and wildlife, and it's a very secure and private little place. And so when I get home, I feel really safe, but I also feel really connected and relaxed here. So, and I guess the other thing is that not very far away, I have friends, and I also have family. My son lives up not very far away with two grandchildren. So,
Mm.
so this is sort of a very important home. But I think what I call really my heart home is where I grew up, and that's Tasmania.
Mm.
Lutruwita, I think, is the name the First Nation people use for Tasmania. And I grew up in Hobart with my family, and I spent a lot of time on the Tasman Peninsula. But it's the country there
Mm.
that really, really is important to me. And when I was a child, my grandparents spent a lot of time um, showing me a lot of the bush and the history of all of that area. And they were very keen bushwalkers, and they could recognize a little tiny orchid. The orchids in Tasmania are tiny, they're about that high, and
Wow.
they're really little. And they could recognize these, in the bush, and developed this sense of being able to be very attentive
Mm.
to what was there in the bush through their guidance. So I developed a really strong connection to the land, and I
Mm.
still have that, as
Mm.
well as a connection to family and friends down there. So I feel very fortunate. I've got two
Mm.
places that I consider that are very, very important for me in terms of well-being.
Oh yeah, I mean, they both sound very beautiful spots. Yeah. When did you first come across restorative practice as a concept, a thought, and an idea, and what's been your experience working in that space?
So I started, the first time I came across restorative practice, I was working in a behaviour support team, and the team worked across schools from Brisbane up to the Sunshine Coast. So it was across high schools, primary schools, what's called special schools up here, so support schools. And Margie Thorsborn was brought in
Mm.
to work with our team to introduce us to restorative practices. And after the 2 days with Marg, I felt a deep sense of excitement
Mm.
about how this helps us to shift our thinking in education from punishment and reward to relationship and belonging,
Mm.
and the deep implications of that.
Mm.
So when I eventually became the manager of that team, I worked very hard to get Margie to come in and train various schools. We offered training to schools. We sort of really sort of started a bit of a an introduction to schools, because a lot of schools here didn't know much
Mm.
about restorative work at all.
Yeah,
And
what period of time was this, Sue? When
this
was
was in the middle 90s. So
yeah.
yeah, and so 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 after that, I um, then started looking with the team around implementation processes.
Mm.
So from that point, so I worked with that team for a while longer, and then as a principal advisor across the area as well, in not just about restorative, but around a lot of areas around um, what was then called behaviour support
Mm.
in schools. And then eventually went into my own business and decided that I wanted to focus on restorative work
Mm.
and relational work in particular.
Mm. Nice, nice, nice. So if we kind of bring it forward into the Restorative Practice International, what's been your involvement with this organization really, and what is it? Where do you see its kind of purpose and fit, and what it can offer members?
Yeah, so I started in 2020 with
Mm.
um, Restorative Practice International, and we were at a point of change at that point of trying to sort of get clearer about what we're offering members and how we were connecting members, how we were working in each sort of sector, which has sort of developed over time. That
Mm.
restorative practices developed, groups of people that work in adult justice, in youth justice, in health, in community, in education. And so we were sort of at a turning point in terms of getting a stronger sense of who we are and where we were going. And that has just increased
Mm.
over the last 5 years. And I think right now we're even more so at a point of strong development with how we work and how we connect, and so and what we offer to members.
Mm.
So I think there's for me there's a lot of excitement
Mm.
around the development of resources. That's something that we're all working on very strongly in across New Zealand and Australia, and I think the development of stronger connections between New Zealand and Australia, and our practice and our learning and
Mm.
our sharing and our capacity to support members and support the advocacy of
Mm.
this way of working.
Mm.
I feel very excited about the future and how we're all working together.
Mm, mm. And you have, of course, been the long-standing treasurer of RPI and done a marvelous job. Although I think you're sharing that role now.
Yes, I've sort of handed it over or sharing the role, but yes, that was a big learning learning curve. It's not my default skill.
Mm,
However, I learned a lot in that area. But I
mm,
think I think at the moment we're developing complex ways of supporting members, and
mm,
I feel really excited about that and the research base that's behind
mm,
all of this, because that's becoming a figural part of what we do too,
mm,
which is linking into researchers and to research bases that particularly in the education sphere, help people to move from the old behaviourist thinking
mm,
to this idea of relational neurobiology, which is a growing field and a very exciting growing field in education, and has the potential to really flip the way
yeah,
that we have worked in school.
yeah.
And we
Mm,
can support, and to support teachers
mm,
have a different approach, that one that is I think, much more human
mm, mm, mm. Yeah.
than the previous approaches.
Yeah, and especially as educators, when we're in the business of growing young people to be great humans, isn't it? That
Yeah,
looking at ways to support that, overall way of being
yeah,
in the world is central. So, my last question now, Sue, and this is there's been a bit of a theme with an RPI about, looking after the well-being of the people leading this work, because I think, yeah, wherever you are as a health practitioner or a teacher or working in youth justice, this is hard work, and we need to be kind of, taking care of ourselves. So for you, Sue, what are the tips and tricks for that you have incorporated into your schedule to look after your own well-being?
Well, I think exercise is really important, but for me, it's exercise in nature. So
Mm,
getting out into nature, walking, bushwalking, walking every day is really important. And I think that rhythmic
mm,
process helps me to slow down and to stop ruminating
mm,
or stop sort of any worrying or anxiety and all that sort of stuff. So that's an important one. I think reading is a really important thing for me.
mm.
So reading, and I read across a diverse field. I read a lot of fiction as well as non-fiction, and so that's an important one. Cooking is really
Ah.
important to me. Cooking and eating.
Yeah.
And sharing, like
Mm,
giving gifts of things that you cook is
mm,
really meaningful, and just being immersed in the smells and the
mm,
sensations of cooking is really, really lovely. And I think really the other thing is keeping contact with family
mm,
and friends and
mm,
being really deliberate about that. I think that's such an important well-being thing to do. And I read something just recently about the shift in a lot of online connection rather than face
mm,
to face. And I mean, I certainly have a lot of online connection as well, but I really do make sure that I have face to face connection,
mm,
with friends and family, and make time for that. You know,
mm.
put it in the diary, that sort of thing. Like it is really important. It makes
Yeah.
a difference.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, well, it has been a pleasure and a treat to chat with you this afternoon. So thank you for your time. Thank you also for your generosity and great work on the board and keeping the ship sailing well. And I look forward to seeing you at our next board meeting.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kirsty. Thank
Ka
you.
kite anō.
See you.